Why do I keep getting triggered and what to do about it? Two quick notes on the subject. The first is there is a simple explanation, which is it's a matter of a thought error. And number two, good news, it is fixable. So today's video is actually inspired by two recent events that just happened to me. And we're gonna walk through a 10-step formula on how to deal with the situation and what that looks like with these examples. So the first situation was I was in a group setting and a person I'm very close to was paying attention to a lot of the other people in the group, and I felt not as important and not as cared about. And the second situation was in regards to my contributing, doing a lot of things for a different individual, and then after doing all the things that I did, getting snapped at and feeling unappreciated and hurt by that particular situation. My name is Gilda, so if you're here for the first time, I welcome you. If you're back, thank you for coming back. So now I'm going to walk you through the 10-step formula with these examples. So step number one is to be aware of your triggers. So situation one, my trigger was that I wasn't feeling important or cared about. Situation number two, I was feeling under, if not appreciated at all. And so step two would then be identify the core thought causing this emotional response. At first, you might not be able to quickly identify it. So in situation one, it might look like this person is talking to everybody but me, but the actual real core thought is, I don't feel recognized or important to this person. In the second situation, it might appear as this person's accusing me of something that I don't do 100% of the time, and they're disrespecting me and being very rude after everything that I've done for them. But the core thought ends up being, why should I do anything for this person, especially after the way that they're treating me? Step number three is, what am I making this mean? In situation one, at that moment, I was making it mean that this person doesn't really care about me. In situation two, it was this person only cares about herself and doesn't appreciate all the things that I do. One quick side note, I did want to mention I did a different video on 10 top tips on how to improve any relationship. And the reason I mention that is in that video, I do go into depth about explaining the 5 love languages. So if you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out as well. And I do highly recommend that book, The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. In a nutshell, people have 5 different love languages, and it kind of works like a bank where your relationship has deposits, which are positive, and withdrawals on a daily, if not regular basis. And whatever is left in terms of the balance of that account is kind of the status or the state of your relationship. It's a great game changer in terms of improving any relationship, so highly recommend it. And I wanted to mention it here because there's a quick translation that I have in terms of love languages as to what this means for each of these situations. So situation one, the love language interpretation is that my bucket of quality time happened to be getting dangerously low. And that's what was happening. In situation two, it was a matter of I've been putting in a lot of deposits of acts of service, gifts, quality time with this one individual. Recently, in the last week, 10 days or more, and then after all of that, there's now a huge withdrawal of words of affirmation, her snipping at me in a not nice manner. And it just made me feel like, wow, of all the things I've done, I definitely don't feel appreciated in that regard. Okay, so back to the other tips. Number 4 is reminding yourself that this is only a story that you're telling yourself. And I know it's not always easy to do, but what happens is whatever that initial core thought is, we start to believe it. And then other thoughts kind of come in to support it. And then all of a sudden, it's causing this emotional disturbance, and we're believing that this person doesn't care about us, or that this person isn't appreciative. Maybe, maybe not. Step number 5 is important, which is to come up with at least 7 to 10 different interpretations or different reasons as to why that might actually not be true, and what else could this mean. If you took the same situation, what other possibilities could there be for this behavior? In those contexts, for time's sake, I'm not doing 7 to 10 for the whole video, but I am going to give you a couple. So for situation number 1, this could be this person's out of their normal environment and really isn't acting like their normal self, or they're not feeling as well, so they're a little bit off. They might actually not be aware of what's happening or not happening, or of my particular feelings or what's going on with me. And this is a big one. Just because they're not necessarily giving me that one-on-one attention that I'm craving does not mean that they don't care. That person could just be distracted or just completely unaware. For situation number 2, it could be a matter of this person is still developing and isn't aware of life rules such as give and take in a relationship, instead of thinking just of yourself and not considering the bigger picture or awareness of all of these other things. Step number 6, find evidence against the initial meaning that you originally gave it. So for situation number 1, this could look like thinking about other ways that the person showed or expressed their care or concern for you, meaning they might have done a kind deed for you, they could have thought about you, given you something special, or paid you that individual time and attention at another time when they were feeling more like themselves. In situation 2, that might mean that, hey, that person actually did express gratitude for all the things that you did, just they forgot in the moment because they were emotionally reacting to whatever situation triggered them. And remembering that, hey, she's still learning, and it's partially my job to help convey some of these lessons to help her be more aware and be more considerate of other people. Step number 7 is communicating this in an open and warm, receptive way, one that is not confrontational. And if you need more tips on communication, there are some other videos I have on conflict that you can look at as well. Essentially, and you want to communicate it in terms of your own feelings and your perspective in a non-threatening way. So great examples would be with situation 1, this could look like the other day when we were in a group situation, I was starting to feel a little excluded and a little bit hurt and maybe uncared for when that was happening. And the story that I was telling myself at that moment was that I'm not important to you and you really don't care. Was that what was going on? And just see what they say. And in situation 2, you could talk about when I do things for you, or I treat you to this or that or what have you, and then the very next moment you're snipping at me. It doesn't feel good. And it makes me feel very under, if not appreciated at all. And it makes me not want to do those things for you. Is this how you would treat a good friend or someone that you respect deeply? Step number 8 is to reflect on what happened and ask yourself what you learned from the situation. Not in the heat of the moment, but once you are in a calmer state, I would journal on it, or just capture some of your thoughts and different ideas on the subject. A couple things that came out of that process for me were to also take a look at what other behaviors on my part that could be adjusted. So in situation number 1, you want to focus on the aspect of the situation that you can control and just a reminder that you're not going to be able to control that other person's behavior. My trigger was that I wasn't getting the quality time or the attention I needed. So one very interesting question that came out of that reflection process was, how can I fulfill this need without looking to another person? And that was a big one. So your bonus tip is actually inspired by a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, or like a version of it. And that is, no one can make you unhappy without your permission. The bonus tip that came through for me was to remember not to seek it on the outside. And I'm not sure what you believe, but I believe in a higher power, whether you call it the universe, source, God, other powers that be. But tapping into that and closing your eyes and taking some deep breaths and getting in tune with that feeling of love or peace, of joy that's really within all of us all the time, but we're not always aligned with it. And so seeking it internally instead of on the outside through another person, I think that's huge. Anyways, try it and let me know. I'm still working on it. So in situation 2, 2 questions came through. The first being, how can I give without any expectation of any reciprocity or even a notion of gratitude? Even though it's kind of human nature, I think the higher versions of us are not going to be so attached, because I find that if we're attached to, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that for you, it's this tit for tat kind of thing, and then when you're giving your piece of it and you're not getting anything back, it doesn't feel right. But how can we authentically really give from the heart and not have those expectations? So that's one. And the second question that came through was not necessarily emotionally react if someone shows the disrespect or the attitude, but set a clear boundary that that's not acceptable. I'm not going to continue to talk with you when you're in this emotional state or when I am. I'm just going to table the conversation. I don't like the way that your tone or how you're talking to me is coming across, and I don't like the attitude. That is something we're not going to be tolerating. We can revisit this when you're calmer, and get ready to walk away and do it. Don't engage with that person until they and you are calmer. Step number 9 would be think about what ways you can calm yourself down when you are triggered, whether it's doing a physical activity, walking away, punching a punching bag, or breaking a dish, taking some deep breaths, or just revisiting it when you're much, much calmer. Step number 10 is to experiment with all kinds of things that help you to either stop getting triggered or calm you down during the process. Do whatever works. So just remember, we're all human. This is going to happen. We're probably going to continue to get triggered. But each time you do, if you're learning something from it or improving something, then maybe we'll find we're going to get less irritated, or it'll take more time for us to kind of get to the anger level. Who knows? At some point, we may get to the point where we're not going to be triggered at all. So quick recap on this 10-step formula on dealing with triggers. Step number 1, be aware of your triggers. Step number 2, identify the core thought that's causing the emotional response. Step number 3, figure out, what am I making this mean? Step number 4, reminder, this is only a story that I'm telling myself. Number 5, come up with at least 7 to 10 different interpretations or possibilities of what those stories could mean. And number 6, find evidence against the initial meaning that you gave it. Number 7, communicate this to the other party in a calm, clear way in terms of how it made you feel. Number 8, reflect on what happened and ask what you learned. And remember the bonus tip, no one can make you unhappy without your permission. Number 9, think of what will actually calm you down or help you not be as triggered or stay peaceful. And number 10, experiment and learn from it. Give yourself compassion and grace, and know that you're going to get better at this every time. And just a reminder, if you do need further support on issues like these, I am a personal professional life coach, happy to help. Feel free to book a discovery call to chat a little bit more about your situation. And there are 2 freebies for you. One is a free guide on how to focus on your priorities, more of a workbook style. And the second is a 2-pager daily happiness formula to boost your happiness levels. I hope that this was valuable, and please do like and subscribe and share if it is helpful. I so appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.